Morning, brothers and sisters in the Most High. My name is Chukwemeka with the Igbo Hebrews. And brothers and sisters, I just realized that this is going to be my 100th video on YouTube. And that's interesting because this channel started in January of 2016. And I thought, it was just going to shut down soon after I started it. But somehow, surprisingly, I now have over 2,000 subscribers, which is, I really praise the Most High for that. And the videos, 100 videos, really, I never knew I would have time to do that. But we thank the Most High because I have learned a lot from doing this, from getting myself out there. I've said it on so many videos. I'm really a very shy person, so putting myself out there is something that really bothered me. And it has brought in some kind of negative situation in my life now, right? As well as positives as well. I've got to know some virtual people. I don't really know them as people, but I've got to know them on YouTube, and most of them are really nice. And I thank the Most High for blessing me with this kind of knowledge. And most of you, of course, don't know me. You don't know what I look like. Some of you do, but and that's why I don't reply to emails for now, because this has brought some kind of negative situation in my life whereby it involves some death threats and police investigations, and that's why I'm not replying to emails for now. But since I realized this is going to be my 100th video, I decided to do a short video to talk about the channel and the ministry so far. Because of what happened, the ministry was delayed a little bit, but we're still going on with what we're doing. The Most High is still working in our lives. And brothers and sisters, the most important thing I want everyone who have tuned in to watch one or more of my videos is this. This channel has created 100 videos, mostly based on the Old Testament. As you all know, I don't reject the New Testament, but I'm not a big fan of it. If I'm going to be very honest with each and every one of you, I've not read the New Testament this year. Since this is July, I've not read it this year. I've not opened it to read. That's how much I care about it. But I do read the Old Testament, or what they call the Old Testament. I call it the Bible. Because most people, because we've been trained in Christianity, we think that the Old Testament is just junk. Okay, that's what we think. We think the Old Testament is just junk. But it's not, children of the Most High. It's really not. Okay? It's really not. And we've been able to do 100 videos based on teachings of in the Old Testament. That tells you, brothers and sisters, you can live your life away from the teachings of Christianity. You can live your life as a Hebrew based on the teachings in the Old Testament, even in this modern era. You can do that. That's one important thing I want each and every one of us to know. Do not think that the Old Testament is old. The Old Testament is actually younger than the New Testament. The religion described in the Old Testament is actually much, much younger than the religion that is described in the New Testament. And I've said this in a number of my videos. The New Testament, why don't I reject the New Testament? You see, there are a number of brothers and sisters I've seen on the internet that don't even accept the New Testament at all. They don't accept it. And I don't blame them for that. But personally, I do read the New Testament once in a while. And I know that there are some valid things in there. So I'm not going to throw the baby away with the bathwater. Now, why don't I entirely reject the New Testament, even though I reject its teachings? Let me use an example. For instance, most of you who are from Ghana, or those of you who've read Ghanaian history, you've heard of Ya Asante-Wa. Okay, the Ghanaian leader, female leader, warrior in those days. Now, if I come to evangelize in Ghana and I tell them, oh, your ancestors used to be Superman or Wonder Woman or Catwoman, nobody in Ghana will believe me. They won't even look at me. They will just say, okay, this man is crazy, and they will leave. But if I tell them Again, follow me here, brothers and sisters. If I tell the people of Ghana that the husband of Ya Ashantiwa used to be somebody that is called Spider-Man, that he and Ya Ashantiwa used to walk like cats, and that's why they call her Catwoman. I put in a real event with fictitious event. Not all of them will believe, but some of them will believe. That is what happened in the New Testament. They were real occurrences, real events that happened in the New Testament, but it was put aside, and a religion, a pagan religion, was crafted out of it. So I take the words in the New Testament, but I don't take the stories. I don't take the stories, because it is from the story that the religion comes up. But the words, these are real Hebrew events, Hebrew people. But they now use different things to craft out a story which they use to propose the fake religion that is called Christianity. I've said this so many times. Christianity is a pagan religion. It's an ancient religion. As at the time Abraham was alive, Christianity was being practiced in this world. People were worshipping Tammuz and Horus and whatever in this world as at the time Abraham was alive. So what they call the New Testament is much older than the Old Testament. Another thing, brothers and sisters, the New Testament cannot be geologically and historically proven like the Old Testament. Think about that. In the Old Testament, for instance, when our ancestors left Egypt and they went through the wilderness, they got to a place in the wilderness where the water was bitter, and the Most High struck a rock to give them water. In the Old Testament, if you read the scriptures, our ancestors walked to a place that is called Marah, and the water there was bitter. The scripture mentioned that our ancestors tasted the water in the wilderness, and it was bitter. Brothers and sisters, do you know that place exists today in Saudi Arabia, the wilderness? The same location the Most High, the Bible said it happened, in what they call Old Testament. That same place is still there to this very day. The water is bitter. Remember, if you remember your chemistry, water is tasteless, but this water is bitter. It's called Marah today in Saudi Arabia. The Old Testament can be proven geologically, historically, and everything. Every day they are digging up bones of giants as described in the Old Testament. Brothers and sisters, if you read Exodus chapter 17, it tells the story when Moses led our ancestors out of Egypt. Okay, led our ancestors out of Egypt, and they were in the wilderness of Sin. Exodus chapter 16, they got to a place that is called Rephidim, and they were thirsty, no water to drink. Okay, and the people almost wanted to kill Moses. Usually we don't take kindly to people who bring message to us. So the people almost wanted to kill Moses, and Moses prayed to the Most High, and the Most High told him, gather the elders, the Nzeanozo, gather them, let them come. And they went to a rock, and the Most High told Moses to hit the rock, and hit the rock, and the rock split, and water came out from that rock. Okay, and that place is called Massa and Meribah. Brothers and sisters, for those of you who have read the book of Jubilees and the book of Jasher, you know that Meribah is the name of the sister of Ishmael. Ishmael is the father of ancient Arabs, ancient Arabians, Saudi Arabia. Not this present Saudi Arabia. I know I've heard some people call Saudi Arabia Ishmael. No, the children of Ishmael, they've all run into Africa, like the Hebrews did. Everybody ran into Africa. These people you're seeing there now, they are Europeans. They came from Germany. They are not the children of Ishmael. Now, that place is called Meribah. Brothers and sisters, if you go to Saudi Arabia today, you will still see that rock standing in the middle of nowhere. This rock, you see a giant split rock. The rock is split in two. in the middle of nowhere. You see the rock clearly standing in the middle of nowhere. Now, for those of you who are geologists, please tell me. Now, look at the height of this rock. Look at this person that's standing here. You now have an understanding of the height of the rock. For those of you who are geologists, please tell me what geologic event that will lead to this rock splitting like this. There is no geologic event. This is a supernatural event. It's a miracle that the Most High did for our ancestors in the Old Testament, and we can see the proof today. If you have money, go to Saudi Arabia. It's still there. I think this area is called Jabal al-Laus in Saudi Arabia. I think that's what it's called in Saudi Arabia. And I also heard that the place is, no entry zone, but it's there. It's still there today. These are things that happen in the Old Testament that can be proven. Again, brothers and sisters, if you look at, for those of you who are geologists, and I do know a lot of geologists, if you look at the rocks here, you find that these rocks here are smooth. These are signs of aquatic activity, because water tends to smoothen things over time. Not only that, geologists have found some fossilized remains of aquatic life in the base of this rock. They have found some fossilized remains of aquatic life here. This shows you that what we are talking about here is true. They call it Old Testament to deceive you. These are things you can prove. You can see it. In the New Testament, you can't. The New Testament does not even agree where Christ's family was living when he was born. The book of Matthew said they were living in Bethlehem and went to Nazareth. The book of Luke said they were living in Nazareth and went to Bethlehem. You can't even agree on that. But the things in the New Testament, you can see them today. They are still there as testament that this Bible you're seeing is true. These are things that can be proven from the Old Testament. The New Testament cannot boast of such proof. You see, that's why I say I take the words in the New Testament. I don't take the stories, because the stories are all pagan religion, all of them. There is a huge difference. For those of you who do not know, there is a huge difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament. A huge difference. The one I usually tell people is this: read the Old Testament up and down. You will never see the word Pharisee or Sadducee or rabbi or synagogue. It's not there. But you will see this thing in Babylonian documents. The religion that was poured in New Testament is a Babylonian religion. That's what it is. So, brothers and sisters, as a child of Jacob, you can live your life without even knowing that the New Testament exists. It would be nice if you know, because there are Hebrew records that are in there. But if you don't know, you can live your life comfortably as a child of Jacob. I assure you that. And this video, the videos I have in this channel, has shown that, highlighted that. I don't base this on the New Testament teaching. I don't reject it entirely. I've done about 2 or 3 videos to expose the lies in the New Testament, but I don't reject it entirely. But there are lots of lies in that, and I will be exposing them in the future by the grace of the Most High. Now, what I usually get from brothers and sisters is that the Old Testament is the law. We live according to the law, but now in the New Testament we live according to grace. I ask myself, what does grace mean? What brothers and sisters usually tell me is that they live under grace. In the New Testament, they live under grace. In the Old Testament, they live under the law. And I ask myself, what does grace mean? First of all, there's a brother on my channel that gave an excellent response to this. I think his name is Brother J.E. And he told the person, you are living under grace. Slavery happened after the New Testament. And slavery is the law, the consequence of not keeping the law. Where was grace when slavery happened? So if you say that the law is done away with, the old covenant is done away with, the consequence of not keeping the covenant is slavery, transatlantic slavery that happened to the children of Abraham. Where was the law in that? Where was the grace? It still happened. We are seeing every day, we are seeing the consequence of not keeping the law in our communities. Our communities are getting decayed and decayed and destroyed and taken over by an alien force. We are seeing that, and you're telling me that we're living under grace. What does grace mean? Brothers and sisters, I have no idea what grace means. I actually looked it up. What does grace mean? I don't know. Do you know, brothers and sisters, the Old Testament does not have that word grace. Instead, they have words like favor. Favor is what the Old Testament have, not grace. So if you say you're living under grace, I don't know what that means. You have to explain what that means. Okay, the Most High. People, if you describe the Most High is righteous. The Most High is just. What that means is that justice exudes from the Most High. If you commit a crime, if you do not keep your end of the bargain, there is a punishment to that. And if God is just, you will be punished for what you did. God will have mercy on you. He will not destroy you. He will not uproot you. He will lead you to where you will find salvation. But that does not mean that He will not punish you for your crime. That is how God works. Anybody that tells you that God has just, because somebody died some years ago and that God has forgiven all our sins, that we can go and keep sinning, that person is just trying to deceive you. There is no such thing. Grace, according to the internet, they say grace means unmerited favor from God. There is no such thing as unmerited favor. The scripture makes it that soul that sinneth shall die. That is what is clearly written in the scriptures. So if you're living under grace, tell me where it is. Especially if your ancestors have been sold to slavery, if your community have been conquered by people from nowhere, and you tell me you're living under grace. Where is that grace? Why am I not seeing it? There is no such thing. There is no better word to get you not to keep the laws of the Most High than by telling you that it is now, the laws are no longer valid. It is now grace. And if you look at the word grace, you find that it never existed in the Old Testament. Nobody used that word at all. That is the word you want to replace the laws of the Most High for. A word that never existed in the Old Testament. So anyway, this is a thank you video. First of all, I'm thanking the Most High that the ministry has survived to now despite everything. And I pray that the Most High help us to achieve what we set out to achieve. And I pray that the Most High lead more and more people to this ministry, to the truth. It doesn't have to be from here, but there are truths out there. There are few and even fewer people out there that give out the truth. I pray that the Most High will lead them to it. I pray that the Most High will lead us to salvation, our people, to come back to Him, to keep the laws that we are meant to keep, and stay away from this deception of this fancy religion that they call Christianity has brought on our people. But more importantly, I want you, brothers and sisters, to realize that you can live your life. You can live your life, a complete child of Jacob, without even abiding in the religions of the New Testament, which, like I said, is a dangerous, ancient religion, much older than the Old Testament. The Old Testament was called old so that you don't look at it. Most times when I'm discussing with people like this and I tell them about the laws of the Most High, they say, oh, that's the Old Testament. You clearly see them brush it aside. That's the Old Testament. That is what it was designed to do. By using the word old, it makes you brush it aside. But you've been told, right? It's not old. It's actually much younger than what you call the New Testament. May the Most High of Majesty bless us, and may the Most High of Majesty help that the ministry will abide. Brothers and sisters, remember me in your prayers just as I remember you. May the Most High bless you. So,